Hey guys, and welcome back to episode 22. I hope you guys all had yourself a wonderful holiday and things are going well for you. Hopefully, you guys got a chance to do some rest and relaxation and got to spend some time with your loved ones and enjoy the holiday. Today, I'm going to be talking to you guys about a little independent film, a little movie called Tully. Tully, right here, came out in 2002 officially. It played at festivals in 2000, had some distribution issues with the distributor. I don't know if they went out of business or something like that. So it took a couple of years to get an actual official theatrical release. So it was released officially in theaters, limited on a limited basis, in 2002. Um, it was directed by a lady named Hilary Birmingham. Sadly, Hilary Birmingham is one of those people that should have had a much bigger career. She did this, and then in 2007, she directed an episode of a show called Craft in America. And that's it. Then she disappeared off the face of the earth. Hillary, if you're out there, you're super talented. Make some more stuff for us. Because there's nothing worse than seeing a great filmmaker one and done, guys. You know, it's one thing if it's some talentless hack that completely just shits the bed, pardon my French, and makes a bad film, and it's like, oh, fuck. Even then, though, because, in theory, the more you make, the better you get. Hopefully, you get better. But in this particular case, Tully is an awesome film, and she deserves a bigger career. Even if it's more independent films, whether it's big independent films, big studio releases, whatever. This is an excellent film, and it's worth seeking out. Again, playing my hand early, but that's okay, guys. You know that I'm only going to focus on films that are positive. That's films that I think are awesome. Those are the ones I'm going to talk to you about. So yeah, she did that in 2000, Tully. And then this American Craft in America, one episode in 2007. And then she was out. I was like, man, talk about disappointing. I hate when that happens. So she also wrote the screenplay with a guy named Matt Drake. Now, Matt Drake is also primarily known for a screenwriting career. He's another one that doesn't have a ton of credits, guys, sadly. He did this, the movie Charlie Countryman, which came out in 2013. Some of you guys might be familiar with that movie. It has Shia LaBeouf. And despite the fact that Shia LaBeouf's in it, it's actually a really good film. It's another little indie. I don't think it did a lot, kind of disappeared. It probably was mostly straight to video or like streaming kind of thing. So he wrote this Tully in an episode of Spin City. Remember that one with Michael J. Fox? And after that, there's nothing to be found for the guy. So there's a lot of one and doneers here. Okay. Our next guy is Tom McNeil. Now, Tom McNeil did not write the screenplay, but the story is originally by him. It was a short story that he wrote. He's an American novelist. And he actually won an award for this short story. It was originally titled "Whatever Happened to Tully," and he won, an O. Henry Award, which is a pretty big award in literature. He's also known for other novels like "Far, Far Away," "The Decoding of Lana Morris," and a novel called "Zipped," among other things. I mean, he has a pretty big career list, and I didn't want to get into the entire thing, so I'm just giving you a couple of the big ones. Another couple interesting things about this film, it got some nominations when it came out, the Independent Spirit Awards. We have one of the main actors, Bob Burris, was nominated for Best Actor that year. He was also nominated for, the film was nominated for Best Feature at the Independent Spirit Awards, Best Screenplay, and Best Supporting Actress for Julianne Nicholson. So it did pretty well at some of these little award shows, which makes it even more frustrating that this filmmaker never had the opportunity to really do more with a career, because I feel like so much talent, such a good screenplay, and a great film, and yet that's it. It's like, oh man, those are the kind of filmmakers, like I said, we want to see more of. So that is the behind the scenes people. Now, as far as our actors go, we got a nice little interesting cast. We have Anson Mount, who is playing Tully Coates Jr. in the movie. There's also another actor playing his father, Tully Coates Sr. Um, he's known for stuff like MK Ultra, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse, the animated movie Injustice, um, Star Trek Discovery, and the TV series, Marvel TV series, The Inhumans. And again, these are just some of the highlights. He has a pretty big career, a pretty big resume with a lot more on there. Um, Playing his brother, Earl Coates, is the actor Glenn Fitzgerald. Now, Glenn has been in stuff like Detroit, Dirty Sexy Money, 6 Feet Under, Igby Goes Down, The Ice Storm, The Sixth Sense. He's been in like a lot of stuff, a lot of supporting roles. Another talented guy, man, and he does great in the movie. Um, Playing the father, Tully Coates Sr., we have a guy named Bob Burris. Now, what's interesting about Bob Burris is Bob Burris, besides being absolutely fantastic in this role, he's another one. He did this movie, and then in like 2006, 2007, he did a short film called Between Baranovskis. Probably pronouncing that wrong, but hopefully I got it right. And that was it. And now, mind you, now he died like I think in like 2008 or so. So that kind of explains a little bit of why he didn't make more. But it's also another frustrating one where it's like he got nominated for an Independent Spirit Award. Yeah, he didn't win, but who cares? Just the fact that he got nominated and he doesn't have a huge film career. And even if he died in 2007 or 2008, like after an Independent Screen Spirit Award, that's pretty big in the indie world. He should have had more roles, but he didn't, and it sucks because the guy is fantastic in his role. But anyway, it is what it is. Um, Julianne Nicholson, she plays a young woman named Ella Smalls, and she's also another fantastic actor. She plays the love interest. She's been in stuff recently like Dream Scenario, that movie with Nick Cage that just came out. Weird Al, the Weird Al Yankovic movie, which came out also this year. Blonde, I, Tanya, Black Mass, Boardwalk, Boardwalk Empire, and Ally McBeal, just to name a few. And she has a pretty huge career. But again, just giving you a couple highlights. Playing the another love interest. We have a girl named April, played by Katherine Kellner. Katherine Kellner has been in stuff like Pearl Harbor, 200 Cigarettes, Rosewood, Dedication, and a bunch of stuff here and there. And then we have playing the role of Claire. We have an actress named Nathalia Carradine, and I'm sorry, Nathalia. I think I got your name horribly wrong. She was, for me, most notably when I saw her in this movie, I knew I recognized her from somewhere. And when I went on IMDb.com, I realized she was known for, in particular, in Sling Blade. She had a nice little supporting role. She was also in stuff like The Last Ride, Walk the Line, October Sky, and Biloxi Blues. So she's been working for a while, and she's great. Like in this, and like I said, she's fantastic in this, and she's also quite fantastic in Sling Blade. She has a great role in Sling Blade. And Billy Bob, anything with Billy Bob, I'm all about Billy Bob. But good old Billy Bob Thornton. So yeah, that's the main actors we have. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this moment to get right into the story, guys. It opens up, and while the opening credits are going, we see pictures of a family. See two boys, and a lot of them. In a couple of them, we see the two boys with their mom, and then we see one picture with their dad. And then we cut from there to the opening scene, and it's a Nebraska farm, and we see the same boys, but now they're in their early 20s, and they're on a farm. And we're introduced to two boys. We're introduced to a guy named Tully Coates Jr., who's a tall guy, dark hair, good looking, very outgoing. And then we see his younger brother, Earl, tailcoats, and they're being like young brothers, being dumb, and they're throwing rocks at each other. Because let's face it, as if you have a sibling, especially if you're boys, you do dumb shit, just to be assholes, and that's part of that relationship. And of course, Earl unfortunately gets hit with one of the rocks in his eye, and he's fucking whining about it. And his brother Tully tells him to stop being such a whiny little baby, and he's like, "It fucking hurts. What do you expect?" And then Dad comes down, and we're introduced to Tully Coates Senior, and Tully Coates Senior is tall guy, white hair. He's probably in his late 50s, maybe early 60s, I want to say. And, he yells at him and tells him to get to work. And he tells, Tully Jr. to stop being an asshole. And, you can't be that abrasive with your brother. You can't just fucking throw a rock at his eye. And he's like, "It was an accident. What do you expect? We were just fucking around, just being idiots." But right off the get-go, you can tell there is, all puns intended here, a rocky relationship between Tully Jr. and Tully Sr. They have kind of a little bit of an abrasive relationship. So just to kind of set the stage for you. Cut to later on in the day on the farm, we see a young girl around the same age of the boys, redhead, probably in her early 20s as well. She pulls up on her bicycle, and she sees Tully Jr. and asks if his brother is around, Earl's around, because she's good friends with Earl. And she says she has some medicine for his bull. And like I said, we're introduced to her as Ella. We find out she's just finished college as a vet, and she's interning at a local veterinary center. And because, he asked her, "I haven't seen you in forever." And she's like, "Yeah, I just finished up school, and, I'm back in town." And Tully's like, "Why don't you come back to this like little small town USA, Nebraska?" And she's like, "Well, I like this place." And he's like, "What could you possibly like about this town?" And she's like, "I like the fact that my family's here." And she's like, "I like the fact that you just see interesting things here." And he's like, "What kind of interesting things can you possibly see in this town?" And she says, "Well, just a couple days ago, that old crooked bridge down the road?" And he's like, "Yeah, what about it?" He's like, "Well, I saw this old Indian guy completely naked next to some white lady that was also naked, just hanging out on the bridge." And he's like, "Okay, well, that is kind of strange, He's like, "You don't see that kind of stuff, Hold on one second. And then she said, joking, busting his job. She says, "You also see interesting stuff." She's like, "I saw Joey McIntyre, oddly enough, get out of your car in the middle of the WASP cycle." And she gives him a wink, and she says, "Somehow I have a feeling it has nothing to do with washing your car." And he just laughs. And he offers her a ride back, throwing her bike in the back of his car trunk, And then from there, we go ahead and we cut to the evening time, and we see Tully Jr. pull in to a movie theater with his truck, and he sees his brother's car, and he goes in there, and his brother's watching the movie, and he's got this big eye patch on him, and you can see his brother is a little bit still pissed off at him. He's like, "What are you doing here? I'm trying to watch this movie." And Tully's like, "Hey man, like, come on, stop being such a stick in the mud, get over it, and I'm going to the bar. Let's go to the bar and go have some beers. The hell with this movie." And at this point, the crowd has kind of realized that he's being loud and obnoxious, and they all kind of want him to leave. And of course, his brother's still pissed. So Earl's like, "Yeah, no, you can go ahead without me. I don't need to do that." And he goes back to his movie. Just bear with me here, guys. I'm looking at my cheat sheet. So next, we see Tully Jr. at the bar with two of his buddies. One of them, his name is Clarence. The other guy's name, we never get his name, so I can't give you the other guy's name. Basically, they're in the bar stall, and Clarence is getting really annoyed because he's watching his girlfriend make out with a guy in another stall. And Tully just basically tries to tell his friend, she's just trying to get a rise out of you. Meanwhile, Tully notices an attractive blonde in the corner of the bar who's kind of been checking him out and smiling at him. Later on in the film, we'll be introduced to her shortly. Her name is April. To give you a little heads up there. Tully offers to buy the boys some beer, and he goes up to the bar, and lo and behold, at the bar, he sees Ella there by herself, and Ella makes note of the blonde overtly smiling at Tully, and she jokes, she says, I don't get it. For some reason, the girls around here all seem to fall head over heels with you, and it's like, I just don't get what the big attraction is. And he just laughs it off. And then she goes ahead, excuse me, guys, and she joins Tully and Clarence and their other friend as they're playing pool in the corner. Meanwhile, as they're playing pool in the corner, this girl, April, continues to kind of smile at him and kind of give him the wink wink, like she's interested. So at a certain point, he gets up and tells everyone, he's going to call it a night. And he decides to make his move, so he goes up to the bar and offers to buy April a drink. And instead she says, you know what, young man, I'll go ahead and buy you a drink instead. And she asks if he's dating Ella. And he says, no, she's just a girl I know. Okay, hold on a second, guys. I lost my spot here. Hold on, bear with me. Okay. And then from there, we cut to the next day, and we see, sorry about that before, guys. We see Tully Sr. Unloading farm supplies. He complains to Tully Jr. they gave him too much stuff, and he has to return some stuff. This causes an argument because Tully Jr. is like, you know what, they were just being nice, who cares, it's not going to hurt anything to take some extra supplies. And Tully Sr. is like, yeah, no, we're not dishonest, we don't screw people, it doesn't matter if they're trying to give us extra or not, we're not a charity. So again, we're establishing this rocky relationship between father and son. Excuse me, guys. My throat is a little bit dry today. So from there, we see a guy pull up in a little car, and he approaches Tully Jr. and says, hey, are you Tully? And he's like, I'm Tully Jr. And he's like, that guy over there is my father, Tully Sr. He's like, well, give your father this letter. And he's like, well, what's this all about? And he's like, trust me, your father will read it and he'll find out. So Tully Jr. is a little bit like thrown off by this guy. He's like, this seems kind of a little bit off, a little bit formal, but whatever. And he gives the letter to his father, and his father opens it, reads it very briefly, and is kind of in shock. And Tully Jr. can see that his father is kind of in shock by what he just read, and he's like, well, what's that all about? And he's like, don't worry about it. When Tully Sr. reads the letter, he realizes that it's a collection agency saying that he owes $300,000 in money, and they're going to foreclose on his house if he doesn't come up with the money. So, you can kind of understand why he's in such shock after receiving such a letter. So later that day, we see Tully Sr., and he's at his local lawyer's office. We're introduced to a guy named Bert Hodges, and Tully explains that he's confused by the whole thing. He's like, why is a collection agency after me? And Bert asks if he owes anyone this kind of money. And Tully says no. He says, obviously, he has some like supplies and stuff. He has accounts with people and stuff like that, but not $300,000 in debt kind of money, So Bert says, okay, well, let me go ahead and look into it, and we'll try to see if we can figure this out, because so far this doesn't make any sense. And then from there, later on in the day, we cut to Earl at the farm, and he's just hanging out with Ella. She stopped by, and he's washing his bowl. He's got a bowl that he hopes will be a prize-winning bowl, and he's getting it ready for the big competition coming up. And Tully Jr. comes over and interrupts him, looking for a tool. And Earl, of course, is a little annoyed, and he says, "What do you? I'll get it to you whenever I can. Leave me alone." Um, a little while later, Earl sees him in the garage. He's working on a car, and he gives him the tool. And from there, who shows up? But the girl from the bar, April, shows up, and then her and Tully Jr. go ahead and take off, and we see them in a minute. The next scene we have is Tully Senior, and he stopped by in the local grocery store, and he's picking up a 6 pack of beer. And we're introduced to the cashier, Claire. She compliments him on always being so consistent, like clockwork. She says every week, the same order on the same day. She said she wishes her ex-husband could have been more reliable like that. Trying to make a joke. She actually, you can tell that she actually really likes Tully Senior, and she's always happy when he comes in. She always tries to get him to talk. Tully Senior is a little bit more on the shyer side. And then from there, we cut to our next scene, and it's Tully Jr., and he's with April, and they're laying in the back of her car, and they're just basically laying under some blankets. They're apparently naked, and they just finished having some sex, and she tells him he can walk home, and he's like, "Walk home? I'm 2 miles from home." She's like, "You'll be fine." She's like, "I have to go to work, and it's only 2 miles." And you can tell she's a little bit cold, not a very warm person. She just wants what she wants. And at the moment, the flavor of the month happens to be Tully Jr. Um, when we get next is we cut to the farm, and Earl is sitting on the porch, and he's talking to Ella. And Earl's complaining to Ella about a girl that he likes named Gina Ray. And she tells him that he has to stop being shy and just work up the courage and talk to her. And he says, like, listen, I get it, but I'm afraid that he's just going to get nervous and he's going to screw things up. So they're having that conversation, and then lo and behold, we see Tully Jr. Out of breath show up on the porch. And of course, he lies. He says, "Oh yeah, April just dropped me off in the front of the driveway and make life easier because she has to go to work." And then Earl goes ahead and grabs drinks for everyone. Grabs a beer for Tully Jr. and a couple of Cokes for him and for Ella. And while he's going ahead and grabbing drinks, Tully Sr. pulls up. Uh, Hold on, guys. And she mentions something about their father. And she's like, "You know what? Because he stops by, Tully Sr. stops by and says, 'Hey, stop screwing around, get to work.'" And Ella says after he leaves, she says, "I don't think I've ever seen your father laugh before." Um, and Tully Jr. is like, "Yeah, you're right. I don't think I've ever seen him laugh before either. So you're not the only one." Um, Later that night, we see Tully Jr. asleep in the supply room. Oh, no, excuse me. I'm sorry. Tully Sr. I'm getting confusing here, guys. In the supply room, Tully Jr. walks in, unfortunately, just wakes him up, and they start talking. Tully Jr. asks if they're going to get the loan from the bank for a new tractor they were thinking about buying. And Tully Sr. says they decided to wait on that. He said, right now isn't a good time. I think I'm going to hold off. And Tully Jr. is like, "Well, why? We talked about this, and we need a new tractor, and this is something important for the farm." And Tully Sr. is very standoffish. He's like, "Listen, I've decided we're not going to get it right now. That's that." So Tully Jr. walks off, storming away. He's not very thrilled. And that's that. Hold on one second, guys. Okay, cut to next day. We see Tully Jr. Drops by Ella's place, Tully Jr., excuse me, and gives her a little notepad. He said, she left this there when she was over yesterday, and he asked her if she wants to go for a ride. He's got to do some farm errands, and she's like, "Yeah, sure, why not? I'll go for a ride." So they're riding along in the car, and Tully's like, you know what, man, it's really hot. I don't know about you. I could really go for a swim right now. And she's like, well, neither of us have any bathing suits. And he's like, that's okay. We'll just go with our clothes on, you know? And she's like, okay, well, if that's the case, I know a little watering hole right down the road here. Just make a left. So they go to the watering hole and they jump in the water and, start making casual conversation and talking. And he goes to kiss her. And basically, she kind of like looks at him and she's like, I didn't come here for that. Um, and he's like, well, what did you come here for? And she's like, I came here because I thought we could get to know each other better and become friends. And he's like, well, how come you never, went for me? How come you never approached me in that way? And she's like, well, I don't want to fight a crowd. And he's like, you know what? I heard that some things are worth fighting for. And she just kind of laughs it off. Um, but she's like, right now, she's like, I just want to get to know you and be your friend. And he's like, okay, well, he's kind of a little bit startled because this kind of guy, Tully Jr. is a kind of a ladies' man, guys, and he's used to getting what he wants, and he's used to being that guy that just kind of woos all the ladies and kind of gets them, and he's seeing some resistance with this girl that's he's attracted to, and she's probably attracted to him as well, but she's a little bit quieter, a little more apprehensive, and she's not the kind of girl that's just looking for a fling. So he's just thrown off by it. But he also realizes that it might be nice to have a friendship in his life. So they kind of figure it out, and they're like, yeah, no, that's cool. We can be friends. So from there, they finish their swim, and she's like, you know what? I can really go for some French fries right now. She's like, you know who makes great French fries? The Tasty Freeze. The Tasty Freeze, I guess, is the equivalent to like a Dairy Queen in this small town. And she's like, we should go get there and get some of those curly French fries. I love those things. And he's like, oh, sure, we could do that. So, they go to the local Tasty Freeze and they go to enjoy some French fries. And who shows up? But none other than April. April shows up and Tully goes ahead and introduces the two. And April responds. She's like, "Oh, you're Earl's little friend. How cute." And not to take any shit from anyone, Ella responds back, "Oh, no, I'm an aging stripper." And it's kind of taking a dig at April because April is a stripper. Um, and unfortunately, April also has a nasty little mouth on her, and she goes, "Honey, I'm afraid you're the type of girl that's probably scared to take her clothes off in the daylight. You probably do it in the dark." So they're like digging back and forth at each other. So April leaves, and she's a little bit flustered, and you could see that Ella is also a little bit flustered. And Tully goes to Ella and says, "You know what? She's not that bad. I know she comes off as a little abrasive, but she's really not that bad of a person." So from there, our next scene, later on in the day, we see Tully and April again, and they're curling up in a blanket on the roof of his car after some postcoital sex and doing a little cuddling. And in the background, we see a radio tower, and Tully decides to share a moment with himself, a little bit about him. And he's like, see that tower back there in the background? He's like, I want to share a story. When I was a kid, I used to look at that tower and I used to pretend like I could just talk to anyone with it. That was my magical tower. I could talk to my dead dog that died and have conversations with him. And I could talk to my mom because she passed away when we were just kids. And I could just feel more comfortable about the world afterwards, knowing that I had like this little portal where I could talk to these people that are no longer with me. And how does April respond? She responds by complaining about something in her life. She responds about complaining about the men in the strip club and how they're all pigs. Just basically just kind of like ignoring this moment, that tender moment that Tully Jr. tried to have with her and tried to connect with her. And then she tells him what that he needs to settle down, and from now on they're an item. And he said, when I mean we're an item, that means you're not fucking around with any other girls. And she goes ahead and grabs his balls and makes that point very clear. And she's otherwise there's going to be consequences. So she's quite serious about her claim to Tully, so to speak. So our next scene picks up, and just bear with me a second here, guys. 'Cause I'm trying to make out my own chicken scratch here. It's with Earl and Tully Jr. and they go to pick up some hydraulic fluid from their local store. And when they get there, they're told that their credit has been frozen by the bank because of the lien on their property. And they're both like kind of like in shock by that. And they're like, what do you mean the lien on their property? They're just the first time they're hearing about this. So they get home, and of course, Tully Jr. is furious. He sees his dad, and he confronts him, and he's like, "What's going on here?" And he's like, Tully Sr. is like, "Don't worry about it. I got it. I'll take care of it." And he's like, "No, you keep on doing this stuff where you're not telling us stuff. You need to talk to us. We're going to be taking over this farm someday. You need to tell us what's going on." And again, there's another like confrontation between the father and the son. Later that night, we see Tully Sr., and he's talking to the lawyer Bert again. And Bert explains the situation. He's like, listen, basically what happened is Tully's ex-wife has acquired some medical debt in the last 2 years. And because they were never officially divorced, he's responsible for it, basically. Bert tells him that the only solution is to find Tully's ex-wife and basically get her to, clear up the debt, and that's pretty much really the only way out. So, things are not looking good. Things are looking rather grim. That evening, we see Tully Sr. stop by his local grocery store again for his weekly beer run, and he sees Claire, and she jokes him and tells him he needs a new vice. She said this vice isn't a strong enough vice. She's like, you need to try something new. It's like every week you come in here on Monday and you pick up a 6-pack of beer. She's like, have you ever thought about bowling for money? I do it every week, and it's just a fun way to get out of the house. And he responds jokingly, no, I never thought about bowling for money. Well, she invites him out to join him, and of course, he politely declines because he's a quiet, shy kind of guy. And right now, I think he's got other matters on his mind, like trying to save the family farm. So the next day, we cut to, and we see Ella and Tully Jr. And they're lying on top of his car. And Tully asks if she thinks he's the kind of guy to. Tully asks Ella if she thinks he's the kind of guy to settle down. And she responds, you know what? I don't like to label people. It's just a lazy way of thinking. I like to think that people can surprise me. And just because someone presents themselves in a certain way doesn't mean that defines that person or that is the person. You know what I mean? Just because some people might think of you as a ladies' man doesn't mean that we all have to think that that's who you are and that you can't ever settle down and have kids or have a life. You know what I mean? It's just too easy to just put people in boxes, essentially, Tully goes ahead and he shares a story with Ella about his mom and a horse they had named Jackie. And she liked to name it because she was like obsessed with like celebrities and stuff like that. And she named the horse after Jackie Kennedy. And she said, oh, that's so sweet. And, this time around when he's sharing a story about himself and his life with someone, she actually takes to it instead of going immediately to something about herself. You know what I mean? So it's nice. You can see they have a connection. They share a moment there. As they're laying in the car, an old country song on the radio comes on, and Ella talks about how that's like her personal favorite song, and she can't seem to find a physical copy of it no matter where she goes. It's just not available. She says, someday I'll get a hold of it. Um, so they have this nice little moment with each other. The next scene, we see Tully Jr. And Earl and their dad in the work shed, and they're both looking at him, and they're kind of like just wondering what he's up to because he's been out. They're noticing that he's been out there a lot lately, and you could see that the guy's kind of stressed out. So they kind of take note of that. Later that night, we see Tully Jr. at the grocery store, and he's picking up a six pack, and there's a girl outside waiting for him, and as he's about to pay for it, Ella sneaks up behind him and sees that he's there with a six pack, and asks what he's up to and what he's doing that night, and he's like, oh, nothing, just kind of taking it easy. And then she sees the girl, and she's like, oh, you're hanging out with Joey, huh? And Joey's another one of these girls that's kind of like April. She's a little bit of a little loose lady. She likes to mess around, and she sees that Tully is up to his womanizing ways, a man about town, if you will. And she just looks at him in the beer and the girl, and she just walks away, just kind of flustered. And it's an interesting moment because it just establishes that she likes him. He kind of likes her. There's definitely chemistry between these two people, but she also is not the type of girl that wants a guy that's fucking around. She just wants a real relationship. So next day, we cut to, it's the farm again, and we see Earl, and he finds Tully Jr., on the tractor, and he says, I gotta show you something. And he brings Earl up to the main driveway, and lo and behold, what do we see? But we see Tully Jr.'s car with the hood off the car, hanging from a rope, and it's beaten to pieces. Clearly this thing is not going back on the hood. He's going to have to get himself a new hood for his car. So Earl tells him that April stopped by and said, she found out about him fucking around with that girl Joey, and this is her way of retaliating, essentially. So excuse me, guys. Tully Sr. comes out, and he notices it, and he complains. He said he doesn't want to see that girl around here anymore. She's nothing but trouble. Later that night, we see Ella. She shows up at the farm, and she's in tears, and she's upset, and she's asking if Earl's around. And Tully Jr. is like, no, unfortunately, he's out right now. But he sees that she's upset, and he's like, what's wrong? What can I do? And she basically explains that her grandfather is going to be put in a home. Their grandmother died a long time ago, and he's been living with their family, and they feel like the best move is to put him in a home. And she realizes that by doing so, that's going to just break him. He needs to be around family, but there's nothing she can do about it. So he wants to comfort her. He says, listen, why don't we go to a place, it's really not that far. We'll just sit back and we'll talk, and tries to, comfort her, be a good friend, He brings her over to the neighbor's yard, and the neighbor has a bunch of cows, and he's like, when I was little, my mom would bring me here at night. Like when I was having a hard time sleeping, she'd bring us here, and we'd just sit here in the truck, and we watch the cows, and the cows, of course, come all around the truck, and they're just hanging out. And he said, it's just peaceful. I know it's dumb, but it's just this peaceful thing, and I always felt good afterwards. And they have a moment, again, where they're connecting as people, Next day, we see the farm. Earl is getting ready to bring his bull to the big fair, big competition. And he tells Tully to be careful with Ella. He notices they've been spending some time together, and she doesn't deserve any of his bullshit, and he doesn't want to see her get hurt. Tully Jr. is like, listen, I got this, man. Don't worry about it. Ella tells Earl he's got to get past this shyness and work up the courage to talk to this girl Gina, who's going to be at this big fair, um, and then they leave. Um, Bear with me for a second, guys. She notices the car and the fact that the hood is missing from it, and it's all beaten up. And Tully explains essentially what happened. And he asks her if she wants to join him in the junkyard because he has to find a new hood. So she's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll hang out and do that." Um, so as they're walking through the junkyard, um, next scene we cut to it's actually the next day. I'm sorry, I should have said that. We're walking to the junkyard. Tully pulls out a little box and he's like, "I got a gift for you. I saw this and I thought about you and I thought something that you would appreciate." And she's like, "Oh, what is this?" Kind of taken aback by it. And she opens it up and it's the song that was on the radio that she really liked. And we hear the name of the song is called Misty Blue. And of course, she's incredibly grateful for the song, and she busts his chops asking what happened with April, and he basically told her, things just didn't work out with April. They both have different ideas of what a relationship is, and she doesn't like what he was doing, and he didn't like her holding the reins so tightly on him, So she kind of busted his balls a little bit, and he's like, "Yeah, that's not happening anymore." And she said, "So you're done with April?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm done with April completely." And she's like, "Well, are you seeing anyone?" And she's like, "No." He's like, "No, I'm not seeing anybody right now." So you can kind of see little hints that yes, she is in fact interested in him. She just doesn't want to be with the guy that's sleeping around with every girl in town. Pretty normal thing. So back at the farm, Ella hands him. We get back to the farm, and Ellie grabs the mail, and she hands him the mail. And one letter in particular kind of throws him off. It's from a letter from it's named a lady named Irene Duffy, and it's on the front of the letter. It says "Return to sender." So apparently, sender we find out is Tully Jr. or excuse me, Tully Sr. tried to send this letter, and for whatever reason, it got sent back. But it throws Tully Jr. off because he's like, "What's this all about?" And right after that, Tully Sr. and Earl arrive back from the fair, and we find out that Earl's bull won first prize, and we also find out that Earl talked to the girl Gina Ray, and they have a big date tonight. So he's pretty excited. He can tell that his brother is a little bit off, and he doesn't know what's up, but you can see that he's upset about something. Tully Jr. He goes to see his father. Tully Jr. goes to see his father in the house. Tully Sr. tells him to make sure he's treating Ella right. She's a good girl. And then he tells him to make sure he's taking care of the horse Jackie properly. And Tully's just annoyed. He's like, all you care about is that horse. You care about that horse more than you care about us. And he's obviously pissed, and he storms off in his car. And outside, we still see Earl and Ella. They're bullshitting, and you can see Tully Jr. Storming off, and they're a little bit like thrown off by this, and they're like, "Hey, what's going on with him?" They don't think too much of it. Earl says he has to leave. He has to get ready for his big date. And Ella asks him just random. She's like, "What was the name of your mom?" And Earl says, Why do you want to know the name of my mom?" And he's like, "Well, I was just curious." And he says, "It's Irene." And she's like, "Oh, okay." So she leaves. And next we see Ella, and she's on her bike. And she sees Tully Jr. by the creek that they first went swimming at, and she figures he might want to talk. So she goes up and says, "Are you all right?" And he's like, "No, I'm not really doing that great right now." And she goes up to him, and they have a moment. They kiss, and then they make love in his car, and they connect. And it's like these two people that shouldn't be good for each other are good for each other, and they have this moment, and we're like, oh, okay, this is kind of, you see how this works. These two people belong with each other, and afterwards, she asks if he's okay, and she can see something's on his mind, and he responds he probably should get her home. He clearly doesn't want to talk about what's going on in his life. That night, Tully Jr. is trying to sleep, but he can't. He looks outside, and he can see his dad, and then that work shut again, and he's restless, and there's just too many questions on his mind. And after seeing the letter that was returned back with his mom's name on it, he's just thrown off. Um, Next day, we see the lawyer's office, and we see Tully Sr. talking to the lawyer. Um, he basically tells the lawyers, like, I haven't been able to find Irene. Um, and the lawyer says, like, unfortunately, the bank won't approve a second mortgage on the house. What I can do as a possible alternative is there's a local farmer that has been buying up a lot of properties, and I'm sure he'd be able to buy your property at a reasonable price and then let you work as sharecroppers, basically. And Tully's like, yeah, no, that's not happening. You want me to work on my own land as a sharecropper? He's like, I don't see myself doing that. And the lawyer Bert's like, hey, listen, I'm just trying to offer an alternative, something that would allow you to still live here and still make a living. And he's like, Tully Senior's like, listen, let me think about it, and I'll get back in a few days. So things just aren't going good for everybody so far in this movie, unfortunately. You got a father-son rocky relationship. You have two people that should be together, but they're not for different reasons. A lot of ups and downs, but it's a good story, and I don't know if I'm properly doing it justice, guys, but I'm doing my best for you. Um, Next scene, we see Ella stop by the farm, and she confronts Tully Jr. Apparently at this point, it's been a couple days. She says she's been calling him, but he hasn't been available, and she was getting worried. She asked if she did anything wrong, and he said, no, you didn't do anything wrong. I've just been busy. She basically confronts him about the letter. She said she knows that letter that he got had his mom's name on it, and he's like, is there something going on with your mom? Is there something that you want to talk to me about? I'm here for you, basically trying to be like a supportive partner. And he basically bullshits her and says, you know what? I'm just upset because a couple days ago, uh, my dad caught me in April screwing around in the barn, and we just got into a big fight. And things have been good since then, and I didn't want to talk to you about that because it would have been awkward. And she calls him out on being a liar and said, you're full of shit. That's not what happened. Um, you're just telling me that because you don't want to tell me the truth. And she says, I thought things were different with us and that we had a connection. But apparently, all you care about is yourself. And that's it. You don't care about anything or anyone else. And she storms off. Later that evening, we see Tully Sr., and he's on the phone, and he leaves a message to the last place that he knew that his wife was, the last phone number he has. And he's basically like, hey, I'm just trying to get a hold of Irene, something really important, otherwise I wouldn't be calling, Please call me back as soon as you can. And he gives like a brief summary of what's going on in this message in the voicemail. Next day, it's the farm, and it's the morning time, and we see Tully Jr. We see Tully Sr. He's looking up at a truck, a hydraulic truck that's been acting up. And while he's doing that, a man stops by the farm named McAvoy. And McAvoy stops by the farm, and he approaches Tully Jr., and he's claiming to be a man looking to start a steak restaurant. And he was hoping he could talk to Earl, because he heard about Earl's prize winning bull, and he thought maybe he could form a partnership with him for his restaurant, and Earl could breed cattle for him, specifically for his restaurant. So, Tully Jr. thinks he's on the up and up, and he's like, yeah, well, he's not, Earl's not around at the moment, but if you want to come around to the barn here, I can show you the bull. And while he's in the process of doing that, Tully Sr. comes up, and he confronts him and he says, McAvoy, what are you doing here? I'm assuming you got the message that I left on the phone yesterday. And he's like, yeah, I got your message on the phone. He's like, I haven't seen Irene in 13 years. Unfortunately, Irene passed away last year of cancer. And, so of course everybody's in shock at this moment because Tully Jr. is finally getting answers about his mom. And Tully Sr. is in shock because he didn't realize his wife died. And he just kind of like walks away and he just starts crying and he's really upset. And from there, before he walks away, he's like, I just want to see my son Earl. And again, Tully Jr. had no idea that this guy McAvoy was Earl's real father. Tully Sr. is just in utter shock, so he's walking away. And at this point, Tully Jr. is like, you need to get the hell off this farm now. So everybody's not in a good place. Everybody's really upset. Just had a big bombshell dropped on them, everybody, and it's nobody's in a good place right now. So later that night, we see Tully Jr. at a bar, and he's been drinking, and he's not in a good place. And in the corner of the bar, he sees at a stall, he sees Earl there with this girl, Gina Ray. And then he sees Ella there with a guy we're introduced to as Dexter. And they're all out on a big double date. And when he goes up there, he goes to confront him. Hold on one second, guys. He goes to confront them, and he starts making an ass of himself. And, like, what are you doing? Bear with me for a second, guys, here. I think I lost my place. Bear with me, guys. I'm sorry here. No, I'm sorry. So backtrack here a second. So later on in the day, we see Tully Jr. drinking beer in his pickup, or Tully Sr. drinking beer in his pickup. Earl approaches him. They ask him if the clutch is sticking again. Tully Sr. just looking at the farm. He says, no, I'm just looking at the farm. Earl grabs a beer, and Tully Sr. basically tells him that it's their mom's birthday today. And Earl tells him he loved his mom, but you were the one that was in my life. And she just abandoned us, and I know that. He's like, I ran into her in a town, a couple towns over a few years ago, and she didn't even recognize me. And then Tully Sr. Goes to explain to him about McAvoy, and he's like, that guy that you saw at the farm, he's your real father. And he's like, I know who he is. He approached me a few years ago. He's never been my real father. You were always my father, and fuck that guy, So they have this tender moment between Earl and Tully Sr. Sorry about that, guys. I just kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. Later that night, we see Tully Sr. is in the barn, and he's affectionately patting the horse Jackie, and Tully Jr. walks in, and he's kind of just amazed because his father's so obsessed with this stupid horse because it represents something that he got for his wife. And he confronts him about it, and he's like, you know what? I don't get it, You worship that woman, and she cheated on you. she had another child with another man on you, and then she just took off and left you. We thought she was dead, but she just took off and left you, and you never even told us the truth. Can you just please tell us the entire story, the truth?" And Earl Sr. explains to Tully Jr., excuse me, Tully Sr. explains to Tully Jr., he's like, "Listen, the truth is, things weren't going good. Your mom left us. And she basically told me, she said, that you have to tell the kids that I died. Because if you don't do that, I'm going to come back and I'm just going to get the kids and you're never going to see the kids again." So that was the story they agreed to. That was the plan they agreed to. And he's like, "That's why I've never told you up until now what really happened to your mom. I've always kind of kept it a secret. So they finally cleared the air, and things are a little bit better now. Obviously, there's a lot of drama going on, a lot of stress, but at least they finally got to the truth of things, and they're talking about what happened, what's going on with the farm. They know the truth about their mom. They're in a little bit of a better place, so they think. Now, later that night, Tully Jr. shows up at the bar. He's incredibly drunk. This is the scene that I was at before a few minutes ago where I was like, "Oh shit, I lost my place." So he shows up at the bar. He's incredibly drunk, and he sees Ella on a date along with his brother Earl and his girlfriend Gina Ray. Ella sees him. She doesn't want anything to do with him. She just leaves the bar. And pretty much from there, we go to the next scene, and it's the next day, and Tully Jr. is driving by his truck, and he sees Ella's bicycle outside the swimming hole. So he stops by the swimming hole, and he tries talking to her, and he tells him, she tells him to leave. She doesn't want anything to do with him. She has nothing to say to him. He just apologizes and explains it never had anything to do with him. That, yeah, he did bullshit her about the story with April in the barn. He said that was all a bunch of bullshit. And she's like, "Yeah, no duh, I kind of figured that out." He said things are just so fucked up right now, and I got scared, and I never loved anyone before. Until he leaves, and then as he's leaving, we see this guy Dexter arrive in the swimming hole. Later that day, we see Tully Sr. Arrive at the grocery store, and he grabs a bunch of ice cream, and Claire busts his chops. He's going, "Well, I'm doing a little ice cream social. Where was my invite?" And he basically tells her, he's like, "You know what? There's something I need to tell you, Claire." He's like, "You've always been a nice, kind, generous person, and I think you're sweet and you're a beautiful woman." And he basically tells her to take care of herself. And she just kind of was taken aback by all this and flattered, but thrown a little off about take care of herself. Like, what does that mean? So that evening, everybody has dinner, the boys with their dad, and seems like it's a seemingly normal night, finally a night with no drama, no bullshit. And afterwards, Tully Sr. Pulls out some ice cream, and he's like, "I thought we'd do something different tonight, and we'd have ourselves a little dessert." And they're like, "What's the big occasion, Dad?" And, like, "Oh, I just thought I'd do something nice." So they enjoy some ice cream, and they share a moment with their dad. And afterwards, Tully Sr. mentions that the pickup in the back, the hydraulics, is still out on the flatbed truck. And Tully Jr. is like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it in the morning." And Tully's no. Tully Sr. is like, "No, you don't have to worry about it. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at it and see if I can get it working again." So they're like, "Okay." And then we cut to the next day. It's early morning, and Tully Jr. is walking around the farm, and eventually he works his way up to the flatbed hydraulic truck, and lo and behold, he finds his dad dead right by the hydraulic truck. It looks like there was an accident, and it looks like the thing came down and basically, hit his head. And his dad's unfortunately dead. Um, but when he's looking at it, he can't help but wonder um, if the truck malfunctioned because it was already having issues, or his dad tried to kill himself. And it's a very ominous moment. It's a very sad moment, but you in the back of his head, you can see that the gears are grinding. Excuse me, and he's asking himself that question. So next day, or we'll assume it's the next day. We don't really tell you. Probably the next couple of days, they have a funeral. Afterwards, in the house, we see Claire from the grocery store. She's in the house. She's dropped off a bunch of food. She tells Tully Jr. said, if there's anything you guys need at all, if you need me to some more home cooked meals, or if you'd like me to sell anything for you, if there's anything I can do at all, you just let me know. I'm here for you. And she's in tears, and you can tell she's clearly upset because she also connected with their father. And the way the movie plays out, you kind of have the impression that obviously if things didn't go the way they went down, they probably would have ended up together. I think they had like a certain chemistry. So you can see she's really upset by his death. Right after that, Ella shows up, and Tully said he's going to take his horse Jackie for a little ride. And Ella's like, "You mind if I join you?" He's like, "Yeah, of course." So they check out the farm and go for a little ride. And eventually they end up by the hydraulic truck, and they're testing it. And it looks like it's in working order. So unfortunately, this kind of confirms what we kind of thought, which is unfortunately maybe his dad really did kill himself, which would make sense because insurance would probably give him the money he needs to be able for his sons to be able to clear the debt that he has. So then they could go ahead and keep the farm and the family, and keep on living. And it's of course very grim, but it's a reality, and it seems like something his dad would do in this worst case scenario because they're running out of options financially. And what's more riveting is when he goes to test the flatbed truck, you see this thing come down, and it's like a guillotine, guys. It just kind of slams down, and as quickly as it slams down, he takes a moment to register that. They both do, Tully Jr. and Ella, and he just breaks out into tears because he realizes, like, yeah, his dad definitely killed himself, and he hears the sound of that just hitting so quickly, and just wow, it's just a lot to take in. And then we cut to Earl, and Earl's at the movies. Earl's like me. Like a lot of us, he's a movie person, and he's watching some old movie, and he's by himself, and he's just sitting there in tears, just reeling over the death of his father. Cut to the next morning, and we see Tully Jr., and he's sitting outside the Tully Jr. house on the porch, and he's just drinking a little cup of coffee, and he has a little bag in his hand, and outside walks Ella, and she's like, "Oh, you were out early. Where did you go to?" And he's like, "I went to get some coffee, and I wanted to surprise you with a treat." And he gives her the bag, and there's some French fries in there. And she's like, "It's a little too early for French fries, but I'll take the coffee for sure." And it ends, and then we credits roll. We hear that Misty Blue song in the background, and you kind of like to think that they have this happy ending in a sense. Obviously their father's dead, so that's horrible, and it's sad, obviously, but we realize that they're going to be okay. They're going to be able to keep the farm alive, and he's able to finally make a real connection with a girl and have a real relationship, and it's just a really good film, guys. Just bear with me for a second, and I'm gonna get another sip of water here. I wish I didn't make a couple of slip ups there. I probably did not do this film the justice it deserves. But all that said, I think this is an excellent film. And it's not just an excellent film for just one reason, it's an excellent film for a lot of reasons. There's just very well written characters. All the characters you care about. I mean, really, like, the only character, and even her you laugh at is April because she's such a shallow human being. But everyone else, like, someone as like the cashier, she's only in the film a handful of scenes here and there, but she really connects with the characters in the scenes that she's given, and it's just so well written. It's so well paced. Great music. You take a guy like Bob Burris, who's playing Tully Coates Sr., and this guy literally had this movie in one other role, and man, it kills me because the guy should have had a huge career. Um, and then you look at the other actors, and they're all awesome. Like, this is a perfect, like what they say, the perfect storm. It's like everything culminates, and you just get a good script, and you get a good movie. And it's just disappointing because, like I said, Hillary Birmingham, I applaud your effort in this film. You did a great job, and this movie should have went on to do good things. It really should have. I mean, obviously, it did good things. It won independent. It got nominated for Independent Spirit Awards. It got distribution, but she should have went on to a much bigger career. And it's definitely a film that I think is worth your time. It's worth seeking out. So definitely go ahead and find this one, guys. It does not have a Blu-ray release, sadly. You can find it on DVD pretty cheaply. I think eBay, probably Amazon. I think as far as streaming services, I didn't see a lot of options. When I did a quick Google search, I think YouTube you can actually rent it off for like maybe $3. I'm sure if you look, there's probably more other options out there. I didn't see it listed on Amazon Prime or anything like that. But if you have a DVD player or a Blu-ray player, um, it's definitely worth picking up. Excellent movie. So big thumbs up for Tully. Um, so next, I'm going to discuss with you guys some other stuff coming up. So I felt bad, guys, because like literally, like I've probably mentioned this before in the last couple of videos, I've not been on a schedule when it comes to these videos. I've been trying to get them out once a week, uh, but the reality is it's very difficult for me to get them out once a week. So I apologize. In a perfect world, definitely once a week. That's what I'm going to shoot for. Um, but realistically, it'll probably be every other week. If I can get something out to you every week, I'm definitely going to. But I'm not going to announce stuff ahead of time just because I'm an indecisive person and sometimes I change my mind. Like, as for example, with The Lost Horizon, I was going to do that this week and ended up just not working out. And you get this film instead, which is great because Tully's an awesome film. Um, so there's that. And then I do have some other interesting stuff on the horizon. I'm trying to put together a different type of project. I talked a little bit about it on my Facebook page. I'm trying to find some more people to join me. And what this would be is something similar to what I'm doing now. I'd probably release an episode once every 2 or 3 months. And with this, I'd be doing like a review of a film. But what's interesting about this is I would also be talking about films that were adopted from novels or graphic novels. And the idea would be to basically talk about the source material, the novel or graphic novel, and then also talk about the actual film itself. So you'd be talking about both things. Because sometimes there's a lot of interesting details that are different between novels and films. Um, and I think it's just fascinating, the differences. And I think it'd be just a really great discussion piece. In order for me to do this one, I am going to look for some more help. So I'm talking to all my fellow film fanatics, especially you guys that have your own podcasts or YouTube channels. I would love for you guys to do this. It wouldn't be a big commitment because, like I said, it would only be like probably once every 2 months. And obviously, let's say I had like 4 people total or 3 people. Each couple months, someone would pick the film and we'd all plan to read the book and see the movie. And then, like I said, I'd do an episode where we would discuss the book and the movie. And I think it would be a lot of fun. And I think it'd be interesting because I think it'd be a way to do an even deeper dive. Um, so that's an idea I'm toying around with, but I definitely need some help for that one because I think it's a little bit too big of an undertaking for me to take on myself. So please, guys, if you're interested at all in that idea, reach out to me via email, johnhorgan719 at gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on Facebook through Facebook Messenger. As well as that, guys, I'm also still working on some other reviews, some graphic novels and stuff, a couple ones in particular that I want to review. So I'm hoping in the next couple weeks to get one of those out to you, maybe sooner. But I'm not going to announce anything. I'm going to let that be a big surprise. So those are some fun things to look forward to. So with that said, guys, now I'm going to just take a minute to shout out to some of my fellow podcasters and people, that stuff that I think you should be watching. Number one will be the Not a Bomb podcast with Brad and Troy. You guys can find these guys on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And what's really awesome about these guys is every week they take a film that bombed at the box office, whether it be a critical bomb or a financial bomb, and they get into a big discussion about the merits of the film or the lack of merits, and they discuss whether or not the film was actually a bomb. Because a lot of times, let's face it, guys, there are films that financially bombed, but they're awesome films. They just didn't do well, and that's okay. This week, in particular, they're going to be talking about I think it was 2019, 2020, don't quote me on that, science fiction film, Prospect. It's a little independent film, and it has Pedro Pascal. I'm actually going to be watching that hopefully in the next day or so. I don't have a physical copy of that, but the last time I checked, you could probably find that on Hulu, guys. So get in on it and check out that film. And well, I think probably these guys usually release new stuff on Wednesday, occasionally, Thursday or Friday, but usually they're pretty consistent Wednesday or Thursday. Great podcast, excuse me. Great podcast, and I think you'll really like it. And next up would be The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema with Will and Sammy. Now, these guys are amazing. They always manage to pick really amazing films, fun stuff. A lot of times, for me, it's stuff I've never heard of. This week, I'm excited, guys, because they're going to be talking about 1980s film The Warriors, and I'm pretty sure that should be out tomorrow. If you guys haven't seen The Warriors, that's a great cult movie that came out in the 80s. It's just a fun time, and definitely worth checking out. So definitely check out The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema. You can also find them on Spotify, and just a great show. Now, the next show is called Watch Skip Plus, and this is with Justin and Jose. Sadly, these guys are on a little bit of a hiatus. I think with the holiday, there was just a lot going on. So they're just taking a little bit of a break, but I think they're going to be coming back mid-January or the end of January. And that's with Justin and Jose. And what's really good about Watch Skip Plus, guys, is this stuff, they cover all the stuff that's in the movie theaters, which is great. So you get the final word on whether it's worth checking out or not. What's also interesting, besides talking about the stuff that's currently in the movie theaters, the plus part of their show, they talk about something that they are enjoying. So it might be a new book that came out that they're enjoying reading, or a new television show, or sometimes it's a new piece of technology and or a video game. And that's a great show. And even though they're on hiatus, they have a ton of stuff they put out there. So you can go on Spotify and check out their backlog of old reviews. And it's just another great show, guys. So check all these guys out. They're all well worth your time. And they're highly entertaining. And I look forward to talking to you guys soon. Thank you again for always showing your support and love to the show. And I will Hope you guys have yourself a happy New Year's, and I look forward to talking to you soon.